What's up, you lazy, entitled, basement-dwelling millennials, bootstrapping boomers, apathetic Xers, and goddamn Gen Z kids today? Uh, Taylor is with us as always. Trevor, a reoccurring guest, has hung out, and he got us probably one of the coolest guests we've had in a long time. If you're a Minnesota football fan, you know him as one of the people who helped us win a few games to a losing Super Bowl season, as always. Mr. Chris Kluwe. If you are just a progressive politics fan, you probably know him from some of his progressive activism over the years, most recently becoming kind of a viral sensation for laying down in the middle of a town hall meeting and making people carry him out. So we're really excited to have you here, Chris. Please go ahead, introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it. So for those who don't know me, I am Chris Kluwe, former punter for the Minnesota Vikings from 2005 to 2012. Proud member of the 2010 NFC Championship game losing team, which I know broke a lot of people's hearts. Yeah, it's we're the Vikings. We keep it exciting. So yeah, and then also I spoke out for LGBTQ rights when I was on the team. Eventually ended up getting blacklisted from the league. Very similar to what happened to Colin Kaepernick a couple years later. And then most recently I was protesting a MAGA plaque that our city council is putting on our public library. And yeah, they have not been listening to us as a community for the past 2.5 years. So I was like, well, this is very similar to what the Trump administration is doing. And I really feel like there's a point to be made here that the time for words is we're kind of moving past that. Like now we're moving into the time of peaceful civil disobedience because that's what Americans do when their elected officials don't listen. Like we have a very rich tradition of doing that. So yeah, went a little viral.
Yeah, no, it was great. And I mean, peaceful is definitely what Americans should be striving towards. Sometimes we get a little less than peaceful, so it's good to see people actually like leading and showing us that we don't need to jump to straight 1776 right off the bat.
Right.
And I do appreciate you using your platform to do that. But I just want to start off with we got kind of who is Chris Kluwe, and we know that the NFL career is really the big part of your kind of story as professionally. But I've also heard you're a rock star.
Yeah, so I played. I don't know about rock star. I mean, I played in a band. We were Tripping Icarus. Played quite a few shows in the Twin Cities. A really fun memory was we actually got a chance to open for a band at First Avenue on the main stage. So that was really cool. I got to cross that one off the bucket list. Played at 7th Street Entry a couple times. Played at Turf Club, a bunch of the other local music scene places. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. We were alt rock. You could probably still find a bunch of our stuff on Spotify. I think it's still there. I mean, I listen to it on a daily basis because I like the music we wrote. But yeah, no, music's a lot of fun.
Yeah, do you still play?
Unfortunately not, because the other three guys still live in Minnesota and I live in California, so it makes
do Zoom jam sessions,
Yeah, right. Like the latency makes it a little difficult. It's
just gonna develop a whole new sound. A whole new sound. Yeah. Latency is gonna fall out of time, but that's the whole point of it, guys. It's authentic.
Exactly. Right.
That was the big thing everybody
math prog rock. This is gonna be latency rock.
That was the big thing everybody tried doing during COVID. I remember, like, hey, you want to jam online? I'm like, nah.
Right now I'm good.
I'll bang my head against the wall. It'll be a better time.
Right.
Hey, that could be a good beat, though. Just like the thumping of your head on the wall. Like, good bass line.
Yep, there's your backbone right there.
Yeah, use that as your metronome.
Well, Taylor, I know because Taylor's definitely the bigger football fan than I am. I'm gonna go ahead and let him take a few of the questions away. He wrote most of the outline today, and I don't want to steal his thunder here. So,
yeah. So I'm a pretty big Vikings fan. Have been for a long time. Remembered watching you as I was growing up, which I was not even in high school for like half of your career probably. So I think I graduated high school in 2012. So like I was and then watching you and Favre and all them, make it to the NFC Championship and have Bounty Gate, ruin it all, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was pretty hurt. That was my first experience as a Viking fan
Yep.
of truly experiencing the pain. So Just want to put that out there. And I've got a whole family group. We'd all do I'll do fantasy football, and I posted out there. I was like, hey, like I have Chris Kluwe coming on the podcast, and do you guys have any questions? And got a few questions out there. Some of them serious and some of them not so much. One of them was,
as you can tell, I'm a very serious person.
Right? Yeah, I got that gist for sure. You take yourself very seriously. Never want to crack a joke.
Nope.
So first one, did the purple people ever upset your stomach?
Oh man,
Purple
you
people?
let that one through. You didn't screen that one out. That is bad. Why do I let you on this podcast?
It was just the opener. It's just the opener.
No, I mean, honestly, I don't know what that reference is, because I know the Purple People Eaters were the defensive line, but like, yeah, I never.
I think it's a play on that, like,
right, yeah.
The Purple People Eaters.
Oh,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah. When we were eating the Purple People. Yeah.
Yes.
There were some times when they catered in food on Friday where it was a little questionable.
Yeah.
Other than that,
That's
I think
fair.
the stomachs were
That's
okay.
fair. Yeah, I mean, you didn't get to see the new Vikings training facility. That it looks pretty awesome. I'm sure. I don't know if have you been there since it all opened. I don't.
Yeah. So I actually got a chance to tour it when they did the LGBTQ symposium. They were legally required to put on as part of the ceremony. So and the training facility looks fantastic. I would have loved to play in that place, because Winter Park was. It reminded me a lot of like a World War II bunker, kind of set into a hillside.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone has gotten a chance or had a chance to go through Winter Park, but it did not seem like an NFL facility, because like I had just come from UCLA, and they'd just updated kind of the training room and the locker room and everything, and so I come from that into what is basically a facility built in like I think the 60s or 70s. It was like our weight room was a hallway. It was but yeah, no, that new facility
Midwest.
was
We gotta
fantastic.
keep you humble,
Right?
You come from that fancy West Coast elitist, and you gotta remember that this is
Right.
the roots you're supposed to be coming from here.
So my favorite part was the indoor practice facility. It was that big warehouse thing, but it wasn't high enough for me to punt in, because I would keep hitting the roof, and I actually broke a light in there my first year. Just slammed a ball right into this. They had like these wire cages around the light, but it was hard enough that it broke the light through the cage.
Right.
And then they're like, Chris, you can't punt into the ceiling anymore. You can go punt off the side into a net.
You were like one of
that
those
sucks.
kids in gym class who threw a ball too hard at the ceiling, and then you got like suspension for breaking the glass.
Yeah,
like it.
well, I mean, I see it. I'm like, I bet I could kick a ball up there.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
probably
I understand the
also remember-
instinct.
You probably also remember coming down to like Mankato, where I'm at for spring
Oh,
training and
yes.
all that fun stuff. You remember
Lovely
that
Mankato.
bar right across? You remember that bar right across the street from the stadium, Boomtown?
Oh yeah, Boomtown. Boom. Everyone knew about Boomtown.
Yep. Yeah, because I remember I used to do some of like the events and stuff. I was like their karaoke DJ and whatnot. And once football time, I'm like, "Who's coming to Boomtown tonight?" Like,
Yep.
that's some
This is literally the
some
only
just-
place in Mankato.
Yeah, there was some really just awesome, down to earth, players who would just come there and would just be regular folks with you, and like just have a drink with them. I was like, yes, this is the best time ever.
So my
And you
favorite,
never came, to my knowledge.
Yeah, no. So I was busy playing video games. Like I'd bring my PlayStation with me and hook it up in my
That's fair.
room.
But you weren't a karaoke guy. Come on.
Yeah, right. I was more a Guitar Hero guy. But yeah, no, my absolute favorite Mankato memory was I think it was either my third year or fourth year. So we stayed in the dorms at Mankato, right? And those dorms suck. like they had to bring in air conditioning especially for us, because the dorms they didn't have any air conditioning or anything.
Yep.
And so we get there, we're checking in for the start of training camp, and this guy is like, he's carrying his stuff and he's looking around, and he's like, man, I've stayed in prisons that were better than this. It's like, holy shit.
Damn.
Yeah, it was those Mankato was a little rough.
Yes, I'm sure the newer players are happy that they get to be in their own secluded bubble.
Right.
At the training facility. Yeah.
Although I will say the cool thing about Mankato though is like, you were definitely there with the fans. Like
Yeah.
people came down to support the team, which was great. Like there was
Yeah.
always a great crowd, always a great amount of people, and like and they were right there. Like you'd see them walking out from the locker room to the field. You'd see them like on the side of the practice facility. So yeah, like no complaints in terms of like the people and stuff like that. Just kind of wish the beds were better. The rooms were slightly larger.
You didn't like the small little bunk beds?
God, it's so terrible.
Did they make you guys stay in the dorms that were bunk beds and like you had to bunk with another grown adult?
Yeah, so they didn't make us bunk with anyone, and what a lot of guys would end up doing is they'd actually keep two beds in their room and just push them together, so that way you had a semi-normal sized bed. But yeah,
Especially for those big old linemen.
Oh yeah, for sure.
When you think about some guy who's going to be like 6'6" and like 250 pounds of brick muscle sleeping on that,
Right? Probably not good for your back either.
like mind you, Chris, you're also a pretty tall gentleman. I remember you're taller than me, and I'm pretty tall myself. I remember that about you. It's like, yeah, you're on this sliver of a bed.
Yep.
It's a twin XL. Thank you very much. Come on.
Right?
What's the deal? What's the problem?
It's fine.
On the bright side, now if you get to talk to any of the new players, you can be that grumpy old man who's like, "You kids don't know how good you had it back in my day. We had to sleep on a cardboard box, you know."
We marched
You had
uphill
to
through
walk
the
from
snow.
the dorms to the practice field,
Yep.
uphill both ways,
ways.
going at us.
No boots, no socks.
The fields were crowned. You can tear your knees stretching.
I have been to a couple of the preseason practices at the new stadium, and it's still pretty cool. I think the atmosphere at Mankato is probably a better fan experience overall, but it's still pretty cool. I will lead with more of a serious question than some unserious questions. So this one is more kind of my question to you, and it seems like you've always been somebody who is willing to put yourself out there if you see some sort of injustice, particularly some injustices that are as flagrant as somebody like Emmett Burns writing that letter to the Ravens owners. And I read I think it was a New York Times article about how like you were like possibly woke up in a sweat at night and were like, I have to like, this is keep me up. Like I can't rest without writing something back. What made you want to like actually like do something about that? You know, being that as for most issues, it doesn't, the issues that people are facing today, like they generally don't affect people that look like us.
Straight white, well-to-do, well-to-do guy. Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's not your problem, right?
So the thing is, like, I'm a history and poli-sci major. Like those, I double majored in both of those in college, and like I've always had a pretty strong sense of justice in terms of like things should be fair. Like when I go up against you on, you know, a soccer field or a football field or a baseball field, like I want to know that I was playing you at your best and then I kicked your ass anyways, like because I was better, right? And so in terms of like social justice and making sure people are treated equally, it's fundamentally a very selfish position in that I want to be free to live my own life, you know, without people oppressing me. But the only way that works is if everyone else has the same opportunity. So when I see someone else being oppressed or treated poorly, and I have a position where I can do something about it, it is incumbent upon me to actually do something about it. Otherwise, I can't expect someone to do the same for me if the positions were reversed. So it's really just about, you know, what kind of world do you want to live in? Because eventually, like, they will come for you. Like, you might be further down the list, but they will come for you.
Right. An injustice for one is an injustice for all.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, were your parents? Did your parents have similar convictions? Was that something that was just in the Kluwe household coming up?
Not really. My parents are pretty much both small C conservatives. My dad worked in the fossil fuels industry. He worked for oil companies for a long time. He was a project manager. My mom was an anesthesiologist, and they never really talked politics at the dinner table. Like we never really had political discussions, but they also had a lot of books in the house. and I love reading. And, you know, the great thing about books is that, like, you can experience other people's lives, right? Like, you can experience other people's thoughts. And, you know, that, I think that went a long way towards forming who I am, is that I just read a whole bunch of different stuff, and that shaped kind of my values and my sense of justice. And, like, I'm a big fan of sci-fi fantasy. I want to be the hero of the story, right? Like, I don't want to be the villain of the story. And the hero is the one who stands up and says something and fights for the person who's being oppressed. So, you know, like, that's what I got to do.
I tell you, the Venn diagram of sci-fi people and people who just are empathetic human beings in general, it is damn near a complete circle. Like, you can't be a sci-fi fan without a sense of empathy for humanity. It's nuts.
Right. Well, I mean, you can if you read L. Ron Hubbard and only L. Ron Hubbard. Then you turn into a Scientologist. But,
right.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like, a lot of sci-fi, like, really does deal with, okay, you know, what is humanity, right? Like, you know, exploring themes of transhumanism, exploring ideas of, okay, well, what happens if we invent the torment nexus, right? Like, please don't invent the torment nexus, because it will ruin everyone's lives. So yeah, no, I think there definitely is something there where it's like, okay, you can't try to expand your mind without also taking into account who other people are and how your actions might affect them.
I tell you, even from like a gaming perspective, like, I grew up playing like Wolfenstein and Call of Duty, like OG Call of Duty. But nowadays conservatives will attack that as like being woke or something because you're, you know, unaliving Nazis. It's like, how dare Call of Duty have this? Like, what are we teaching our children to do? Kill Nazis is what we're teaching. I'm sorry, I thought we could all agree that this was
it's an American tradition. Like, I thought,
right? Yeah, like
but
we already had this debate.
No.
Like, we had this debate and we won. The Nazis lost. Like,
we had a whole war about it. It was a big thing. Like,
okay, but it's just a Roman salute. It's fine. It's not.
Oh yeah, for sure. Throw my heart out. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We see Call of Duty. They're going after the Roman saluters, not the Nazis.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta get our story straight.
Yeah. Well, it was like our governor, Tim Walz, had been caught on like a hot mic saying that the problem with you know, the country right now is we're being taken over by Nazis, and he didn't specify a political party or anything. He just said we're like literally being taken over by Nazis, and that's a problem. And Minnesota Senate Republicans came out and demanded an apology for that. He's like, I didn't say Republicans. You said that. I was talking how we had literal Nazis marching through the street in Ohio, and you got offended. So let's.
Methinks the lady doth protest too much.
Yeah, you know, if the red armband fits, my guy, like that's.
Yeah.
The fact that there's like literal memes going around where it's like, how to find a Nazi. Step 1, say fuck Nazis. Step 2, look at comment section. And then there's well, all of you liberals just call. I'm sorry, I don't care Republican or Democrat. We should all be able to agree Nazis bad. I'm not accusing anybody, but we should all be able to say fuck Nazis.
Bare minimum right there. Yeah, Nazis bad is like just the baseline of are you, you know, a human being I can identify as a human being and associate with.
Like, do you want a stable society? Your floor is fuck Nazis. Like, you can't get below that floor.
How dare? See, you can't just say everybody you disagree with is a Nazi.
No, I can say Nazis are Nazis.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, and that was actually something where when I made my speech at the Huntington Beach City Council, like I deliberately put a copy of it up on online later with all the sources that I had cited. You know, this is why for me MAGA is explicitly a Nazi movement. And like and you know I'm like I spent probably about an hour and a half just researching, you know, various like news sites to make sure I had, you know, reputable organizations and articles that were like, yeah, no, this is Nazi shit. And like, because I'd have people come up to me like, well, you know, I don't like that you called me a Nazi, and I'm just like, I'm sure you don't want to be a Nazi. Like, you don't think of yourself as a Nazi. The problem is there were a lot of really good Germans who voted for Adolf Hitler because they thought he had their best interests in mind. You know what? There's a lot of really good Americans who voted for Donald Trump because they thought he has your best interests in mind, and he does not. Like, he does not care about you in the slightest. So if you support him and what he's doing, sorry, Like, you're part of the Nazi machine.
Well, speaking of
Or you-
writing another article, how do you feel about being a guy that's got away with words? Compliment from Rush Limbaugh at the time. Like,
That was so funny.
it was such a weird time. Like, such a weird time.
Yeah. Well, and again, like it's one of those things where there are a lot of small C conservatives, right? Like who their main issues are, and I'm also speaking locally, like where I'm at. Like we have a lot of small C conservatives that just want lower taxes and people not to build houses in their backyard. And it's like, okay, fine. Like we can argue about that. That is a conversation we can have. And I'm on one side, I know you're on another side, but at the end of the day, like we're still Americans trying to determine, what the best way forward is. The problem is a lot of these small C conservatives have hitched their wagon to literal crazy people who are trying to enact a Nazi agenda. And they need to understand you better unhitch your wagon really quick because otherwise you are complicit in everything this administration is doing. Because that's the other thing. Like, let's not get it twisted. Republicans in Congress could shut this administration down the second that they wanted to. And they are deliberately abnegating their power because I guess they like what he's doing. Like, that's the whole point of Congress being a co-equal branch of government, is that when the executive gets out of control, Congress says, you know what? Good for you. Good luck paying anyone. And then it stops because it's very hard to go out of control when you don't have any money.
It is absolutely insane that Congress is abdicating their power the way that they are, because throughout history, it doesn't matter if it's your president, your party's president in office. Congress has gone out of their way to make sure that the executive branch doesn't take away authority. That is because that's their power. And the whole premise of the equal but separate branches of government was that everybody's selfish and they want as much power and control and authority as they can possibly get. And so it's predicated on those branches fighting each other for power to make sure that one branch gets exclusive authoritarian power.
Right.
And the fact that they've just completely given up on that. They voted against Ronald Reagan. Democrats voted against Obama on all kinds of things. And it is just insane. And I don't know if it's that they like what he's doing necessarily, but it's that they are. Some of them definitely do. You've got the Bobos and the margarine taters and cream out there that absolutely love what he's doing. But you have a lot of traditional Republicans that I think are just afraid that if they get on the wrong side of MAGA, they're out of a job. And potentially getting hung in the street, as Mike Pence was worried about at one particular moment in history. And
right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but again, like, they made their bed. Like, at some point, if you care about the country, you're going to have to do some scary stuff that might potentially make you a target, because that's now the cost. Like, the cost would have been a lot easier to bear if you didn't let it get to this point. But guess what? Now that's the point where we're at. So the cost has gone up. If you continue to let it keep going, the cost will keep rising even higher and higher. So I would prefer we shut it down now, because already the cost is pretty shitty.
Absolutely.
And right now you're seeing that any Republican, any elected Republican who speaks out or even just votes against, I think it was just Thomas Massie was the lone Republican who voted against the budget bill. Donald Trump immediately takes to his little safe space echo chamber, Truth Social, and is trying to say we need to primary him out. We need to fund the primary. Then you have Elon Musk is saying that he's going to, fund all these primaries against dissenting Republicans. At what point do all of these elected officials, elected Republicans, need to collectively grow a spine and say, bring it on? But they don't.
At what point? Like 10 years ago. That's the point.
2015, yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, it should have been 50 years ago under Reagan, but that's when they first started getting that taste of power, and they liked it. And this is what I keep comparing the Republican Party to. The Republican Party is, Dr. Frankenstein, and they built this monster, and they kept pushing the boundaries a little bit because they're willing to exploit it just a tad bit more to make sure that they won another midterm, that they got another election, that they were able to just gerrymander a tad bit more to ensure their power. And this was the Mitch McConnells and the Mike Huckabees of the world, the Karl Roves. And then eventually, Frankenstein's monster became self-aware, became sentient, and they couldn't control it anymore. And now, you've got Mitch McConnell and the Cheneys clutching their pearls about, oh, this isn't the Republican Party. We know it's like,
Right.
this is the monster you built.
Yeah.
Built this monster. You were willing to push the propaganda just a little bit further every time, just the conspiracy theories just a tad further, because you knew it would get a few more idiots to vote for you this time around, and eventually you control it anymore, and now it's trying to hurt you.
And Mitch McConnell was literally like one of the few people who could have done something about this. Chris, I got a question for you, because obviously I started following you in the early teens, the early 2000 teens, when you were having your activism as an NFL player. Did you ever think that 12, 13, 14 years later we would get here?
So it's funny you bring that up, because I actually remember so after I was out of the league, I was doing some speaking stuff at various colleges and universities, and people would frequently ask me, and this was back before, I think this was when Hillary was running against Trump, and people were asking me hey, what are your thoughts on the election? And I'm like, just from a historian perspective, empires collapse. That's what they do. Most empires only last around 200 to 250 years, and we're coming up on our 250 year anniversary. So we're right at kind of that stage in the cycle of things start falling apart, because people just they splinter, they fracture, they go their own ways. And so what I was telling them at the time was I don't think that the United States is going to be able to, to remain the same way that it is. But the problem is okay, the system's breaking down. How do you want it to break? Because one of these candidates, aka Hillary Clinton, you can kind of manage the dissent, right? You can make it so the government isn't being obliterated. The other candidate, things are going to break really, really quick. And that's, again, historically, usually not very good for anyone involved in the country where it's happening. And luckily, during Trump's first term, there were still people involved in government who were willing to say no to him, right? Within his own party, within, his government apparatus, that were no, we can't do this. This is un-American. This time, all the brakes are off, because he believes, and rightly so, since he wasn't prosecuted, that he can just do whatever he wants, and he'll never be held accountable, because no one held him accountable. And it's okay, well, I guess now we get to see what speed running the death of an empire looks like. And frankly, I'm not looking forward to it.
And I would even add to that point of Hillary versus Trump, in that Trump obviously we're seeing what his vision for how America should break and become something that's unrecognizable. I think Hillary's vision would be to limp it along as literally as physically as long as possible, no matter what, if there's, poverty increases or people get, more bankruptcies for just getting health care. And I think the actual leftist way to break America as it is today was Bernie's vision, which had no representation within any political party. And, that was the answer to what we're seeing now, and it's too late.
Yeah,
to make that a big official change. Now it's going to be grassroots, and that's not the best way to start a government that runs a country.
Yeah, and it's also to the point is that if you truly do want to fix the American political system, you have to get rid of Citizens United, because that has been such a corrosive element. You have to implement anything to get the wage inequality down, because right now we are past the Gilded Age in terms of wealth disparity between the very, very rich and everyone else. It is ridiculous how much separation there is there, and a lot of that has to do with estate taxes when people die, right? It's great, you did a good job with your life, you made $50 billion, whatever. You can pass $5 million down to your kids, right? So each kid gets $5 million. That's more than enough of a head start for them to if they're going to succeed, they'll succeed. If they fail, they fail. The rest of it, there's no way for a child to have a normal childhood growing up if they have access to literal billions of dollars, because who is going to tell that child no? Who is going to tell them that you should care about poor people if they're never around poor people? If they're never at a public school, there's no perspectives there for them to learn from. There's just this is what my family did. It made them rich, and I'm just going to keep doing that. And then, you know, eventually that collapses. Like, you can ask the French what happens about that. But yeah, it's we need to address the income inequality, and we absolutely have to address the racial inequality in this country. Like, the other huge part of the problem we're in is that Reconstruction was deliberately sabotaged by the Southern Democrats. And like, and until we deal with that like wound in our nation's psyche, we're still going to keep having problems, because a lot of our current administration's acts are driven by racism. They're driven by the idea that straight white men are the only ones who are eligible and competent to run a country. And you see that with all the firings that they're doing, with all the anti-DEI stuff, where it's like, this isn't anti-DEI. You're trying to bring back segregation. Like, let's call it what it is. Like, this is a segregationist movement. And yeah, it's frankly un-American. Like, it goes against everything that the American dream has ever stood for. And, you know, believe me, I understand.
It's arguably very American, if we're being honest.
Oh, right, yeah. It's simultaneously very American while being un-American.
But yeah, the fact that they try to argue that bullshit, it's reverse racism, actually,
it's like,
is
nope.
absolutely asinine. Like, one of the things I keep saying to people is like, look, I get it. It is hard for you to acknowledge white privilege exists when you have amounted to so little, despite all of the goddamn privileges you started with from day one.
Yep. Like, so that's again gets back to the whole income inequality problem. Is there are a lot of poor white people out there, right? Like, who don't have the advantages that more well-off white people do, and they have legit complaints, right? Like, if you're in some rural Appalachian town and you don't have public libraries, right? Like, you don't have access to good internet or clean water or good food. Like, yeah, it's going to be really tough for you to succeed. The problem is, you don't blame black people for that. Like, it's not reverse racism that's keeping you down.
You don't blame the immigrants for coming in for your circumstances that your family's been dealing with for 100 years. You know,
exactly. Like, it's and a lot of the times that these circumstances there are resources available, but the politicians in those areas refuse to accept the resources because they know if their electorate gets smarter, they probably won't vote for the same politicians because they'll understand just how much they've been kept down over the years.
And that turns into one of the biggest issues. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and that's not even a conspiracy. Like, that was during the Reagan administration or the Nixon administration, when they said we are, in danger of having an educated proletariat, and that was the point. Is like, if people get enough education, enough understanding of how the system works, they're gonna understand that we are fucking them, and then we might, risk becoming an actual democracy, which would be problematic,
Right. And Chris,
it's a bad thing for billionaires' bank accounts.
Right. I'm sure you heard about that I don't know if like California has specific like political history, but like Reagan's administration saying that same thing about just academics in California when he was the governor. Like, that's like, you probably have more not firsthand because obviously, but like,
I think I was one.
So you saw. So you were right up front. Yeah, you were definitely there.
Formative years.
Exactly.
My favorite thing is all those charts where like you can look back at when did something bad start happening, and you go, when was Reagan elected? He's right at the inflection point. It's like, yep.
Yes.
It's as if Joe Reagan's devoted how much of his time to Reagan, and now it's
oh my god. Yeah, I don't know if you even knew I existed prior to this whole little thing, but I have a whole series called Everybody Hates Reagan that just goes into like the deep dives of like, here's a specific problem in America that sucks. Like, why is college so expensive? Reagan, and here's the line of how we got here. Why do homeless people exist? Reagan, here's the line of how we got here. And, it is painful, like how it's like it should be more nuanced than it is. If you just want to blame somebody, you can blame Reagan, and 97% of the time you're dead on, or at least mostly accurate.
Yep.
Speaking of not knowing if I existed or not, I was just reading your letters. He mentioned your letter to Emmett Burns. I also read your letter, your article to Nate Jackson. It was like I was experiencing, my spirit animal I never knew existed. My content and rhetoric is very much in par with the way you write, and I'm like, how did I not know that these things existed, and now I want to be your absolute best friend in the world forever? It's impressive. And so how much backlash? I know when I started doing content creation and whatnot, and kind of pushing the boundaries of how abrasive I could get in my rhetoric and whatnot. I was worried, obviously, about pushback just from like local community and pushback from, where's the line where you go too far in calling somebody a complete fucking moron
right.
in the most colorful way possible. And obviously I don't have a multi-million-dollar sports career to lose, and you did. So was that something that ever crossed your mind? Something that you worried about in the process of doing that, or were I got mine already. I can live on a few $1,000,000 for the rest of my life. So
right.
fucking full send. Or...
No. So basically that was it. Is that when I was approached by the group Minnesotans for Marriage Equality, so they were the ones who asked me to help speak out against the amendment in Minnesota that would have banned same-sex marriage. That was one of the things I thought about. I was like, okay, what are the potential consequences of me doing this? And I knew one of the potential consequences was I would lose my job because the NFL is run by a bunch of old rich white dudes. And they tend to have certain political views. So I was like, okay, yeah, this is a potential outcome. I didn't think it had a good chance of happening because I had set most of the Vikings punting records. And I was like, I'm still pretty good at my job. But, it is something that happened. Am I okay with that? And I looked at the money I'd made over my career. I'm like, yeah, I am okay with that. I don't live outside of my means. All I need is an internet connection, my gaming laptop, and a couch. That's it. I'm happy. So yeah, I knew I had enough to support me and my family for, essentially the rest of my life, even if I lost my job doing this. So I was like, okay, that definitely makes it easier to do something like this. But then the other thing is my parents always taught me, if you're going to do something, do it to the best of your ability. And so I've always tried to approach whatever I do in that way, whether it's being a football player or speaking out for someone. So if I decide to join your cause, you are going to get me at full 100%. I am going to do my very best. And as for my writing style, I actually developed that in the World of Warcraft realm forums, which were a hive of scum and villainy. It was
should have known it came from online gaming,
right? Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, though, is that because there's so many people, right, involved in the forums, and most people don't give a shit. They're just there to waste some time and yell at other people. And it's okay, if you really want a message to stick, you got to find a way to make it stick. And what I found worked really well was, okay, if I want to make a point, and I also attach some really clever, funny swearing to it, people are far more likely to pay attention because they're like, wow, that was really funny. And then now they're talking about the point that I was, originally trying to make. And so that's what I used in the Nate Jackson piece. That's what I used in the Emmett C. Burns piece. I notably didn't do it in the piece where I talked about my firing from the Vikings because, again, that's one where that kind of rhetoric doesn't really land well, right? It's also the reason why when I was speaking in front of the city council, you can hear, I'm very calm, I'm measured, I am, laying out the points of this is why I believe what I do, this is why it's wrong. Because, again, that's not a place where that kind of rhetoric works. If you use it there, then it's okay, well, this guy's out of control, he's just ranting, why should we pay attention? So it's also understanding, right, who's my audience. So the audience at Deadspin, that's perfect. They're or what's now the corpse of Deadspin. But yeah, that's something that's going to land for them, and it's probably going to spread and go past that. Whereas the audience for people who watch city council meetings, if I go up there and be like, "You fucking twat waffles," why the fuck are you being Nazi assholes? Boom! Instantly, I've lost 90% of the audience. So
I'm starting to wonder because obviously MAGA has found a niche in that kind of rhetoric on a very typically political, what used to be a respectable and decorum riddled stage, and now you got Donald Trump up here from the Oval Office basically calling people cunt face and shit like that.
Yep.
And so I have wondered because I absolutely agree. I think that there is a nuance to how that type of rhetoric works and where it works, and I've been really curious to see how it's evolving because I'm assuming you'd agree with this, and I know what they say about assuming, but we've all been expecting more from our team, the people on the left. I would like to see a little bit more swearing and cursing and colorful language and biting insults from Democrats and I think that a lot of other people want to see that too, and we're really not getting that. Do you think that we're getting more to a place where that can leave the Deadspin space and be applied to the city council space or more professional official spaces?
Yeah, so like that does get to one of the other reasons why I protested the way I did, is that this is something I've wanted to see from my elected officials. Like you have been telling us the severity of the situation, and I completely agree. I think we are in a constitutional crisis. I think we are in an existential crisis as a country. But if that's what you're saying, then you have to do something about it. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be with words, right? Like it can be getting arrested because you're pushing your way into a government building to see what Doge is doing. No one elected Doge. Like this is not a legal entity. You are an elected official of the United States government. You can go into a federal building and provide oversight for what's going on. That is literally in your job description. And if they stop you, well, now that's the story. Like now people are talking about, wait, why is our elected official not being allowed to give oversight on what's happening at the Treasury or what's happening with Social Security or at the Department of Education? Like these are important things. Like we should care about these things. Someone should be paying attention to these things. And so, yeah, like for me, a big part of it was I can't ask them to do that if I'm not willing to do it myself. And my civil disobedience was me showing them, hey, like this is what I've wanted you to be doing all along. And I think for a lot of other people, and why it resonated so much, is that that's what they've been waiting for as well. Like just because John Lewis passed away doesn't mean the party like can no longer cause good trouble. Like,
Chris,
do something.
I have a question for you that's more of a direct response then to some of Trump's recent rhetoric. He, about a week ago, put out on his little echo chamber, safe space, Truth Social, that if you're protesting, he's going to deport you, that if you're protesting, he's going to expel you, even though he doesn't work for the school. If you're protesting and you're here on a student visa, he's going to revoke your visa. And now we see real life consequences of that with Mahmoud Khalil, for example, who was here legally under a green card, getting detained, still no charges filed against him. Where do you think this ends? How do you think this affects the, Chris Kluwe's of the world who show up to city council meetings and engage in civil disobedience?
Yeah, no, well, so this is exactly, and I actually made a post about that yesterday where I'm like, first they came for the Palestinian protester and I said, hey, you Nazi fucks, knock it off. Like this, everyone, we need to shut this shit down right now because I actually read the poem. Like that's like, if you've ever read Martin Niemöller's First They Came for, the socialists, like you're living it right now. First, they came for the Palestinian protester. And guess what? You may not agree with everything he's saying. You may not agree with how he said it. But the First Amendment guarantees him his right to do that without the government punishing him for it. And like we are literally having a constitutional crisis. Like that is a First Amendment crisis. The fact that the government is doing this and that so far they've been allowed to do it. So collectively, we all have to understand that if we don't speak up now, eventually it will be your turn and it will be my turn. Like I'm sure I'm on some list somewhere. It's probably way down the list because they have other people they want to deal with first. Right? Yeah, but we're on that list. Like, and if they continue to accumulate power and no one stands up to them, well, guess what? They're gonna just keep working their way down the list and eventually they're gonna arrive at you.
Yeah, I feel like we're all pretty close to the same level on the gulag list. I'm hoping that we'll be there together because it'll be the fun gulag,
We can share a chain link fence.
Yeah, exactly.
We can play some backyard pickup. It'll be good.
It'll be like
we got special teams going.
Yeah, one XL bed. Yeah, just one though.
Yeah, relive the longest yard.
Yep. But no, like in all seriousness, like people really do need to care about this because this is how it starts. Like this is how fascist regimes begin essentially their reign of terror. Like it doesn't start with death camps and trains. Like it starts with people getting disappeared and unwanted ideas being pushed out and made illegal.
It starts with people not giving a shit. It starts with, well, it's not happening to me, or I'm a straight white male who doesn't need to give a shit. It starts with just not giving a fuck. Well, it goes on. It starts with us not. Us and as in, the white guys who look like thumbs in their Dodge Durangos drinking PBR. Not giving a shit.
With your sunglasses on.
That is the annoying thing though too, is like when you come out and you be like, Republicans are being fucking fascists. They are being Nazis. They are doing Nazi shit, and everybody who gets offended by that, or like, you're overusing the term Nazi, you're gonna regret calling everybody a Nazi right now. I'm like, I'm not calling everybody a Nazi. I'm calling fucking Nazis Nazis. But the point is that like they seem to think like it's not a Nazi until you get to the death camp part. Like that was the last chapter of the Nazi book. Like the Auschwitz was in the last paragraph, man. The rest of it leading up to it, that's where we're at. You need to go back and read from the beginning. You can't just read the aside. And that's what's really frustrating. Is like, when are you going? Like, what is the line where you're willing to admit that this is not democracy? That this is not, the things that we at least all pretend we hold dear as an American society, as the leaders of the free world, which we're definitely not anymore. And that's
clearly not anymore.
I did have. Did you actually get charged when you got arrested for your?
Yes, I have been charged with a criminal misdemeanor, disturbing an assembly, and I have a court date in April where we'll see what the city does. Because honestly, the smart thing for them to do would be to just drop the charges and make the circus go away. But we'll see what happens.
I think I'm kind of hoping they don't, because I feel like you can bring a lot more good trouble to them if they don't.
Like I said, we'll see what happens.
So that's interesting to me too, because like I obviously watched your whole speech, and then you just walked up there and laid down. You really didn't do anything super disruptive. You waited for your time to speak. You spoke. And then you laid down in the middle of the floor, and they were on you like flies on shit. I mean, like
immediately.
That. Yep. And like they could have been like, okay, cool. Can you like get up and move now? Right? Or they could have just left you laying there, which honestly would have been if I was in their shoes.
That's the smartest move. Just let me look like an idiot.
Yeah, exactly. I would have left you lay there and move on. All right, can we have the next speaker? Now you're just laying in the middle of the floor doing absolutely nothing.
I'm assuming this isn't your first.
So it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this wasn't your first rodeo with them, perhaps? Is that why they were just immediately on you?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, so I've been going to these city council meetings for about 2.5 years at this point, because that's how long they've been screwing with the library. And like, you can tell just in the way they've set up the chamber that the city council is very hostile towards the community, and that they are expecting violence from the community because they know what they're doing is unpopular and that a lot of people don't like it. So like the actual physical layout of our city council meeting chambers, it used to be there's the bench area where the council members sit, right? There's the audience area, which is kind of across from that. And then the podium used to be like off to the left side, where it's kind of equidistant between the two. So it felt like you were speaking to both the city council as well as the community. You know, is a much more welcoming sort of architecture. Now it's set up where it's very adversarial. You have the podium directly facing the city council, you know, the audiences at your back. They put up a ton of barriers, you know, to make it obvious, very, very clear that they don't want you doing anything. Like, you come up, you speak, and then you need to leave. And like, and the other thing that has been really frustrating from a community standpoint is like, we are trying to make our voices heard, and that we don't like what's going on. There are a lot of us who don't like what's going on, and they won't even debate the things that we bring up. Like, that's, a city council is supposed to be apolitical. You're supposed to do what's best for your entire city, what helps your entire community. And this city council has made it very, very clear that they don't care about the community. They only care about themselves, collecting political power for themselves, and then using that to try to rise up the ladder, you know, closer to Donald Trump's orbit. It's like, that's not how you run a city. We're already facing a budget deficit. Like, you guys are going to make it worse. Like,
I guess
listen to your community.
That's sort of what I would expect out of a council that's called themselves the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Like, what a wild turn of events. Like, you're city council people, and you're like, yeah, we represent MAGA, and for the city of Huntington Beach. Like, no, you don't, man.
Yeah.
Like, you're just crazies.
Yeah, like, well, and I actually brought that up at the last city council meeting where, you know, I got up and spoke again. They let me back in the building, so that, you know, that was good. I commended the police officers for their professionalism during a stressful situation, which I think threw a lot of the city council off because they were probably expecting me to rant at them. But yeah, no, I was like, look, as community members, like, we just want you to listen. We want you to, you know, we don't want a MAGA agenda. We want a Huntington Beach agenda. And right now, all we're getting is a MAGA agenda. Like, and that's not good for our city.
But then that's the question.
Oh, I've got just a question about that too, because Huntington Beach is Southern California, and obviously everybody kind of thinks of Southern California as just this liberal blue bastion of,
Right.
coastal elites and blue-haired nose ring lesbian baristas or something.
Mhm.
And it doesn't sound like that. Like how did that happen in this part of California where you've got the magnificent seven running your city?
Yeah, so the thing with Huntington Beach is it actually has a very long history of white nationalism. There's been legit Nazi chapters here. The KKK had their headquarters here at one point. They used to be up in Anaheim, then they kind of got shifted out once the mouse started exerting control, and they moved down to Huntington Beach. But yeah, it's like I grew up in Seal Beach, which is about 4.5 miles away, and even growing up, I would hear like, hey, watch out for the skinheads, watch out for the Nazis in Huntington Beach. Like that was a legit problem then. It seemed like the city was moving in the right direction, and then COVID happened, and I guess everyone lost their fucking minds and decided, hey, let's bring the Nazis back. And so yeah, like in this particular region, Huntington Beach has always leaned right, but it's had that undercurrent of it has been a haven for white nationalists before, and it has been for a long time. And that's what we're trying to fight against, just like the people who came before also had to fight against.
You did just answer what was going to be my next question, but then my follow up to that, because my question was, how do these people keep getting elected? But that's kind of the how.
Oh, actually,
now
so
the other question.
Well, so actually, let me answer that because it actually is really important. So the cities that surround us use a precinct voting system, right? So like there's distinct geographical areas. You vote for your city council member to represent that area. So that way, your council member actually represents the area where they live and the people in that area. In Huntington Beach, and they did this very deliberately, it's the top 3 or top 4 vote getters are the ones who get elected to the city council, and it's citywide. We also have a very large mega church in our city that all of our city council members go to. They're very good at whipping the vote and getting people out. Huntington Beach also has very low voter turnout. So you get this representation of a vocal minority that doesn't represent the rest of the city, but because they're the ones who show up consistently and vote for these people, that's putting them in power. So we need to move to a precinct type system. We need to get local people more engaged in the politics of the area and get them to understand that, hey, even if you are a small c conservative, like MAGA is going to make your lives just as bad as it's going to make our lives. Like as a small business owner, good luck with tariffs. That's not going to help your business. And our primary income for the city is tourism. I don't know how many people like going to a town that's known for its Nazis. It's usually not a lot. So, yeah.
I want to go experience American History X in real life.
Right? It's everything this council is doing is bad for the city, both financially, ethically, morally, politically. Like you can go down the list. And it's like, this is just not helping us as a city. We need a city council that is doing what's best for the city.
And that goes into my follow-up then.
I was just going to say, I think that point you made really just highlights how conservatives nationwide and now MAGA nationwide has gained the power and influence they have. Is it's just a lack of engagement and a vocal minority. I mean, they've always called themselves a silent majority, and they've always been just the painfully obnoxious minority, but squeaky wheels and grease and all that, and they put out a much bigger it's a peacock effect. They fan themselves out and they make themselves look very large and imposing when they're really not, but that's the impression that we get, and you feel overwhelmed. You feel like this is maybe apparently the representation of the country, and that's
right.
That's
and if you go back and look at the vote totals of the recent presidential election, Trump turned out the same amount of people that he turned out in 2016. Like it's the same amount. The Democrats
he hasn't gained any new voters.
Yeah, he hasn't gained anyone new. Democrats fell, and half the country didn't vote. Like there's no mandate when you didn't even win a majority. You won a plurality, and half the country didn't vote. Yeah, congrats. You managed to get your people frothed up and exciting about committing war crimes. Maybe other people should show up to the ballot box and be like, we're not okay with that.
My follow-up then to that, too, with your local situation, and you don't have to answer the second part of this if you don't want to, but who is running against these people? And at what point do you maybe consider getting extra more involved than you already are?
Yeah,
I
so
have had a question in the comments too. Is like, is Chris going to run for politics? So.
Right. Yeah, so I've had so many people ask me if, like, I'm going to run as a politician of some sort, and like, I really don't want to. I do not want to be a politician. I don't think I have the mental mindset to be a politician. Nope. It's not something I particularly enjoy doing. Politics should be boring. Like, politics should not be me lying down and getting arrested and carried out of the chamber. It should be boring arguments over zoning restrictions, or, when is my pothole getting filled? Like, let's put up a new stoplight at this intersection. Like, that's what politics is supposed to be. Yeah, and so, like, I am still trying to figure out what the most effective way for me to do this is going forward. I don't want to be in politics, but if that's the most effective way, then I might have to do it. As far as Huntington Beach locally, the other big problem we have in this city is that there is a ton of outside money that gets funneled in during our election seasons, primarily from evangelical groups that are out of state. In our most recent election, the three Democratic incumbents who were running, our top money raiser who came in fourth place, Natalie Mosier, she raised $260,000 for a city council race, which is absurd. Like, there should not be that amount of money coming into a city council race. And that was for the fourth place finisher. Like, the top three, the ones who won, they were pumping even more money into their campaigns. And unfortunately for a lot of people who vote in my city, it's whose sign did I see last? And I will vote for that person, right? And the other side hung a lot of signs. Like, their signs were everywhere. And so, so for a lot of people, again, especially the small C conservatives, they see, oh, these are the conservative candidates, even though it's supposed to be apolitical. Like, there's no R, there's no D next to your name. It's just your name. And they're like, oh, well, I'll just vote for them because they're Republican. I'm Republican. Obviously, they have my best interests in mind. And so, like, I honestly don't know how to fix stuff in my city because, A, you need a crap ton of money to even compete. And then, you need to find a way to convince those small C conservatives that, like, even though these people say they represent you, they really don't. Like, they really don't have your best interest in mind. So we need you to just vote for whoever has the city's best interests in mind. And that's going to be a real uphill battle.
I think, and I'm gonna be the kind of person that drives me nuts too, because I get that a lot, is people, when you make content, like, you should run for office, and I have never had any interest in being a politician. I don't think I would be a good politician. Again, I haven't ruled it out in this kind of the same way you have, but you have obviously at least a little bit of your own money. You have name recognition and connections. I'd assume that would help you fundraise and be able to be at least competitive on that front. And at least from my perspective, and I think all of us here are biased, but it seems like you have that ability to connect with the small C conservative. You aren't unapproachable, unattainable as, just a regular everyday person. You still very much give off that vibe. You still very much give the impression that you care about the people who don't have a lot of money, who still have to get up every day and work for a living, who still send their kids to public school. And I do think that if you did decide to do it, it seems like you probably have more advantages than most people who would be running in that sort of situation.
Yeah, no, and again, I recognize that. Like, I very much do recognize, hey, like, people are drawn to what I say, and it's just I mentally do not know if I'm equipped to do that job. Like, I know what I'm good at, right? Like, I'm good at reading books. I'm good at playing video games. I'm good at football. Like, I'm good at soccer. Like, it's, I'm good at, like, studying stuff. I, like, when it comes to the minutia of, like, okay, let's go through the budget line by line, I'm like, I want to shoot myself. But that's what we need, right? Like, that's the type of people we need to have in office. And it's unfortunate because the three Democratic incumbents that we had before, like, they liked doing that. Like, they enjoyed doing what was best for the city and all those tedious little tasks. And again, like, that's who we need. And so one thing I'm thinking is maybe I don't run, but, like, I help amplify whoever does, right? It's been like, okay, I've talked with these people. These are the people who will make politics boring again, right? So let's get together and start fighting back and be like, you know what? These three policy nerds, you really want them to be the ones figuring out whether or not
Jim from accounting
should do this.
Well, and
So,
that
yeah.
really is one of the fundamental problems of a democracy or democratic government is the person who is best qualified to win a campaign is often the furthest thing from the best qualified to do the job, because it's a popularity contest
Right.
to get the job, and then it's a qualification to actually do the job, and those things rarely ever match up. You do get it occasionally, but either you have somebody charismatic who can win an election and then has no fucking idea what they're doing or how the government works when they get into that position, or you have the opposite. And fortunately, some people, like you and I, recognize that we would be absolutely horrible at doing the job itself.
Right.
Yeah, because if you put a spreadsheet in front of me, I'm leaving. I'm not even going to look at it. I don't care what it says. There's absolutely no way. If you don't give me an intern to handle all of that, I'm not doing that. So no, I appreciate and understand that. And I do think that there really needs to be more focus on messaging as a party, more organized focus on messaging. And you have people like you who do a really good job at messaging, at bringing attention to issues, at getting people to pay attention to those issues. And there's a space for that especially the Democratic Party has just completely abandoned. And it's like, oh shit, it's 6 months before an election.
Right.
We need to, pull out all the stops and let's pull in some celebrities and get Taylor Swift to say she endorses our person, and that should do it, right? And they need that 24/7, 365 every year, especially in the off years, to just have that attention always brought to that, and then have those people that then have a place in that space saying, these are the people you should vote for and why, and in a way that people can digest that.
Yeah, because I think the other thing that the Democratic Party doesn't understand yet is that you are competing for attention against literal propaganda machines like Fox News, like OANN, like X, right? Like Facebook. These are propaganda mills that are creating a lot of times deliberately false content in order to drive people to vote a certain way. So if you're not out there getting your own message out, like constantly talking to people, making them aware that, hey, here's what's wrong, and then taking the action to back that up, well, yeah, it's no surprise that like young people don't want to show up and vote for Democrats, because like, what's the fucking point? I mean, we have the same people in office that were in office when I was a kid. And like empirically, you have failed. You have not done your job because we have gotten to this point. So you need to leave and you need to let younger people take over and start doing the job, because they actually understand what's going wrong. They understand what's important to them. And they're the ones who are going to have to live in that future. Like some 87-year-old senator doesn't give a shit about climate change because he's going to die in the next 3 or 4 years. Like, what does he care about climate change? Like, a 34-year-old really gives a fuck about climate change because that's the world they and their kids are going to have to live in.
I get so frustrated just seeing like Chuck Schumer is apparently our spokesman right now against
Fucking
the
guy.
Donald Trump regime. And he's just up there, well, actually, I'm gonna... It's like, there's no passion in his voice.
Right.
We are going to write another strongly worded letter telling Republicans that they need to consider the wants and needs of the American people.
Right.
And, we'll bring our little paddles and tell them that we respectfully disagree with fascism.
Yeah, and it's like, well, and that's and it's not even just that. It's that they're actively sabotaging the members of their own party who are trying to do stuff. Like, you censured Al Green for what?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't give AOC the chair because it was some other old dude's turn. There's no turns. It's who is the best person for the job, who is going to get people interested and willing to do the stuff that's necessary.
And then many of them actively will try to distance themselves from people like Jasmine Crockett, who has been doing her job perfectly. But they're like, do you agree with Jasmine Crockett? I mean, if she wants to make those comments, yes, I agree with Jasmine Crockett. Say it.
Yeah, it's really not hard. Just be like, yeah, she's doing the work. I fully support her.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the whole Al Green thing made zero sense to me, and we've talked about this on our show a couple times, but like, he is doing what you all should have done that day, that night. You all should have followed his example, and it prolonged the speech 30, 45 minutes, however long it took for all of you to stand up one by one and get escorted out. That's what we want our Democratic representatives to be doing in a situation where you've explained to us this is fascism, this is the threat to democracy, this is he's gonna be our king, right? This is the things that you've said. Do you believe that, or is that just a campaign speech or a way to get people to the polls?
Donate $5.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Or do you actually, are you going to stand up and believe in those words that you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. If you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk, and a lot of them are not walking the walk.
Right.
Well, and you saw how effective Al Green was being, because Trump was rattled through all of that. Like, Trump does not handle vocal dissent to anything. Like, if he is not being constantly affirmed by the people around him, he falls apart and melts down. And so if you had Al Green's escorted out, and as soon as the door closes and Trump starts talking again, somebody else stands up and does the same thing. And you did that for 100 members of Congress.
He's going to lose his shit.
When
Trump gets his constipation face,
Mm-hmm.
like, that's when you know you're being effective, because he gets that toddler pooping his diaper face right in the middle of Al Green.
Yes, well, and you saw it happen in the conference with the Zelensky. Like, Zelensky was very firm on, like, no, like, this is not okay, and like, they couldn't handle it.
As soon as Zelensky said, you were raising the volume of your voice, but not the logic of your argument.
Yeah, right. Loudness does not equate to correctness.
No.
Why can't American politicians say that? You're raising your voice, but not your logic.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Well, and so that I guess is the other question, tying it back to if you ran for politics, and maybe not city council, but maybe shot for something higher, like a U.S. representative, because you would have the conviction to go do the Al Green shit. And even so, like, and right now, that's really all the job is at this point, is just voting against it wherever you can, and speaking out against it, and making sure that attention stays on the big problem topics. Is that something you might see yourself doing?
Yeah, so the only problem with that is that my current representative, Dave Min, aside from a couple problematic votes, like, he's actually been pretty good. Like, it's clear he cares about the job. It's clear he cares about people. He wants to do the right thing. And it's like, why am I going to take his job when like I voted for him, and I will vote for him again. Like, yes, I want him to be doing more. Like, he's also a very junior congressperson, so he probably doesn't have a lot of levers of power. Like, I would like to see him exercise whatever he can. If that means going into buildings and getting arrested, then like, yes, please go do that. But yeah, like, I feel like he is representing me and my community perfectly fine. Like, I don't want to take his job. For our governor's race, right? Like, I'm sure you've seen Newsom having on like the literal personification of Satan as one of his next podcast guests, and it's like one of the people running against him, she just announced her candidacy yesterday, is Katie Porter. Like, I love Katie Porter. I voted for her over Adam Schiff in the primaries because like, she's the type of person we need. Like, she understands the minutia. She can present it in a way that people get, and it makes for better government and a better society.
That whiteboard out.
Right, exactly. Like, that's who I want as my governor. Like, I don't want to be the governor. Like, I want Katie Porter to be the governor because she'll be way better at it than I will. Like, so
I would love to see Katie Porter as governor of California. That would
be fantastic.
Incredible.
Like,
especially Newsom needs to go. Newsom needs to do what Pete Buttigieg is doing now. Like, that needs to be Newsom's entire job, is just not actually doing anything political and just doing the talk show circuit, talking shit to other. Because again, we go back to messaging, and some people are really good at messaging. That does not mean that they're good at doing the job. And I think Newsom, that's where he shines.
And that's what Governor Walz was starting to do.
Yeah, I was so sad that they started stifling Walz during the presidential race. It's like, because he absolutely hit on the perfect message. These are weird little freaky people. Like, why are we entertaining them seriously? They are weird creeps. Let's keep calling them weird because that's what they are. And it's like, and then for whatever reason, they decided to go talk with James Carville. I don't know why he's still alive, let alone giving political advice.
It's the 18-year-old blood.
Yeah, the Democrats will find the oldest person in history to go talk to when anything. But yeah, no, the weird thing that hit it, knocked it out of the park, kicked it between the goalposts. If we're keeping appropriate analogies for the
Right.
show, it was on point. And it's like, okay, this is going good. And his little quip about, I'll debate JD Vance if he can get off the couch to do it. And
Right.
like
Perfect.
those little things, and it's like, this is what we need. And it's
Yes.
like, that was the most energizing point of the entire campaign. Like,
Mhm.
right, like, it wasn't Kamala being announced as the front runner. It wasn't any of that. It was Tim Walz coming out and everybody discovering Tim Walz for the 1st time. And it's like, that is a specific type of political capital that you only get once. Like, that's kind of what Obama won on, right? It's like, you're unknown, and now everybody's learning everything about you right now, and you've got the ability to put your best face and your best front out there before, the propaganda machines dig up old dirt, before they just fabricate stories to make you look bad. And it's
like Walls
they
and
just
Tiananmen Square. Yep.
squandered it. Yeah, they just squandered it immediately. And it's like, you had a golden opportunity. Like, that was your ticket to win this election, was putting Walz should have been front and center on literally everything. And yeah, they put him up there for a minute. Everybody got really excited. America's dad. And then where the hell did Walz go? And it was so disappointing.
And the other thing too is, and there's an old tweet that I think really sums up the situation really, really well. I'm sure you've probably seen it floating around. It's like the Democrats are so busy complaining about the fact that a dog can't dunk a basketball. The Republicans just keep dunking over and over and over again. And it's like you're so concerned with decorum and rules, and like, we are past that point. Like, that shit doesn't matter anymore. Like, you have to find what works, and then you have to run with it.
Like,
I have no... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, you hit the nail on the head. You literally have Republicans just throwing out every insult in the books. And, well, I'm going to have a really strongly worded response to that and tell you how much I don't appreciate it. No, if you're going to tell me fuck off, fuck you.
Right?
Like, that's what we need. Like, Jasmine Crockett did it best. What do you think about, she was asked, what would you say to Elon Musk or something, just like, fuck off.
Right? Well, yes.
Answer.
That is the collective zeitgeist of America right now. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Representatives, start embodying that energy.
For example, Chris, if Elon Musk came into this podcast right now, what would you say to him?
I mean, you suck at Path of Exile, first off. Because I play that game.
Yeah.
I've designed an item for that game. Like, you fucking poser. You are a weird little creep.
Was that the one where he paid somebody to get him to be like top 10 in the country, and then he just tried to play it and obviously had never played it before?
Yeah, it was both Diablo 4 and Path of Exile 2. And, it's hilarious because the type of people who play Path of Exile really care about the intricacies of the game because it's a very complex game. And so like, they can sniff bullshit out in an instant. And yeah, seeing him playing, it's like, you're a fraud.
The comment section of my video about that was fucking wild.
Yep. Yeah. So, but I mean, that's who Elon Musk is. He is a fraud. Like, his superpower is convincing people that he's not a fraud and to go along with what he wants to do. Like,
founder of Tesla.
Right. And we're seeing with what he's doing with Doge that, like, he has no idea what he's doing. Like, he has one idea what he's doing. He wants to harvest personal information, so that way he can limit his competitors, and he wants to scrape everyone's records in the hope that he'll be able to do something with AI about it. Like, other than that, he does not give a shit.
It's all designed through Grok, right?
Yeah,
with Grok.
And that's the crazy part is, like, you have these uncleared people accessing very sensitive financial data, personal data about the entire country. And this is a guy whose fortune is built off of receiving government contracts. Like, yeah, Tesla made some money, but it also got a lot of subsidies. Like, SpaceX makes some money. It gets a lot of government subsidies. And when you hear about the head of SpaceX saying, oh, we need to shut down NASA, that's his direct competitor. Like,
or Verizon and Starlink.
Yes, like this is not government decisions. This is grifting. Like, this is fraud. This is bribery. It is corruption. Like, call it what it is, because that's what's happening.
If you've ever seen the show Community, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. But they had a Matt Berry cameo episode in there where he was the professor of grifting 101, and it's definitely like that's school's in session for that class in
yeah.
America every day now, and it is painful. Yeah, I did want to, back to your city council thing. I did want to ask too, because like they were on you and you really didn't do anything that I could see constituted a crime. Like you weren't disruptive. They could have let you lay there and you wouldn't have disrupted anything. You would have just looked like an idiot laying on the floor, right? And have you thought about bringing First Amendment lawsuits against them because of that?
Yeah. So I'm currently exploring my legal options, both in terms of the criminal charge as well as in terms of against the city. I've talked with the ACLU. For this case, they can't act proactively, right? Because they have to wait for something to be done, right? So like, yeah, if they try to make a charge stick, then I think that's when I'll have a First Amendment case. But I am exploring my legal options for getting fired from my job coaching high school football because in the meeting where I was let go, they made it very clear that, hey, we're like, and these were their exact words, we're getting too much attention, we have to let you go. Like that was the only reason they gave me. And as far as I'm aware, a private citizen engaging in protected speech cannot be grounds for being fired from a public institution. Like that's kind of what the First Amendment does. So yeah, I am definitely exploring those avenues because again, not everyone has my resources, right? Like not everyone can afford to be fired from their job in order to make a political statement, and they shouldn't be fired from their job for making a political statement. So if possible, I would like to show that if this happens to you, you do have recourse to the law. Like there is something you can do to protect yourself and to, make it so that people understand that what happened to you wasn't right.
And if you play it right and you make sure that there's enough media attention brought to that journey, you can show people who would do that because, I want to fire somebody because we just don't want the negative attention from the fact that they are engaging in this protected speech. That there's repercussions to those actions and make them think twice before ever even doing that. So hopefully the people who don't have the resources to fight it aren't put in a position where they need to try to come up with those resources.
Exactly.
It's God's work that you're doing with that for sure.
Yeah, I had a note here, saw that you had gotten fired, and I had to say, like, I would think personally, like, that's probably worse than any repercussion that you're going to face from this is not getting to do a coaching job, which I presume you're doing because you love to do it, not because it's like a glamorous job by any means.
I think I worked out my my hourly wage one time is that I make around like $1.50 an hour in terms of what I get paid to coach freshman
football. Low tippy minimum wage. That's crazy.
So it's definitely not for the paycheck. I can tell you that.
I think you had a couple more questions in here. We always get hijacked and runaway train, and then I always feel bad because Taylor's sort of just quiet in the corner over there. But I know
I'm a listener. I love to hear the conversation and just chime in every once in a while. So no, it's all good. I really didn't have a ton more that I think is really relevant. My kind of final question is, and I think it's probably pretty clear to our audience at this point, but what is it about this administration that worries you the most? Is it just that it's redefining how America does democracy, or is it that we won't have another election in 4 years and that we are heading towards a literal Handmaid's Tale sort of season 1, the prequel in real life?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the second one because this situation that I'm in now where, getting the media attention, speaking out on an issue is very, very similar to when I was speaking out for LGBTQ rights with the Vikings. Like it is almost functionally one-to-one the same experience. The one thing that's different is back then I felt like we were still operating in the bounds of the American political system. So there were two sides, we would present our points, people would vote, then we would abide by whatever the decision was, right? Like that's democracy. That's how it works. Now it feels like one side is, we want democracy, we want to be America. And then the other side is, we want to be something else. And regardless of your political affiliation, you can't wave an American flag and support a guy who puts a crown on his head. Like those two things fundamentally cannot coexist. They directly oppose each other. And so as a country, we need to figure out, are we America? Are we going to fight for that? Or are we something else? And that something else is going to be much, much worse. Because you look at the people Trump is modeling his behavior off of, like Putin, like Erdogan, like the Saudis, like these are all dictators. Like, these are people who may have the trappings of democracy, but it's not really democracy under the hood. It's what I say goes, and if you speak out against that, we will disappear you. So yes, I actually am very concerned about whether or not we will have free and fair elections, not just in 2028, but in 2026. Like, they're already laying the stage to claim that, you know, they're the only ones who can count the votes properly. I mean, that's the whole reason he wants to take over the USPS is for the mail-in vote. And yeah, like, if that happens, they may call us a democracy, they may call us America, but that's not what we're going to be. And that's a very scary thing to live in, because there are people who have fled to America from fascist dictatorships, and they are telling us right now, these are warning signs. Like, this is really, really bad. You need to stop this now, otherwise it's going to get worse. And yeah, I mean, call me naive, but I believe people when they say, I have had direct experience with this. This is really bad. I'm like, well, maybe we should listen to those people.
Even on that, it's like all of the people who, you know, the leopards are currently eating their faces, and they're like, well, I didn't know Trump was going to do this. And it's like, he told you he was going to do exactly this very thing. He said, I am going to do this one thing. And you're like, yeah, but I didn't actually think he would. And it's like, what do we need to do? Like, how do we make you believe when the person you're voting for, either you trust that he is going to do what he says he's going to do, and that's why you're voting for him, or you don't think he's going to do what he says he's going to do for all of the good shit. If he does, he's not going to do the bad shit. So why? Like, it makes my head hurt in ways that I can't explain.
Yeah, I think a big part of it too is just the fact that he has unlocked the ability for people to be their worst selves. And there are a lot of people who want to be their worst selves, and they see this as sort of a freeing, you know, experience for them. And like, again, I don't think we can get those people to understand that what they're doing is wrong, because this is who they want to be. Like, they want to abuse other people. They want to oppress other people. And all we can do is stand up and make our voices heard and say, no, that's not okay. We are going to prevent you from doing that.
So many of these voters on the right, they are.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, Trev. Your audio got a little messed up there for a second.
How about now?
No, it sounds like you're talking out of a tin can.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
maybe turn off your mic, turn it back on again. I don't know.
Have you tried turning it off and turning it back on again?
It works. It just works.
Power cycle your router.
No, I mean, they want us in a religious theocracy. Like, people are like, like, you know, national xenophobia would be perfect. Like, that's what we should have. Like, we want a white culture, and it's like that's an insane thing to put out there in the public.
Right. Well, and also because it doesn't work. Like, historically, you look back at fundamentalist regimes and they fail because they drive away the brightest, they drive away any sort of diversity, and eventually you're just left with shitty people, and the people the shitty people are oppressing, and then the people that are getting oppressed will at some point pick up their pitchforks, they'll sharpen their guillotines.
Right. They'll go full Rage Against the Machine, you know? Like,
and it's like, let's try and stop it before it gets to that point, because like that point is never good for anyone involved.
No.
Let's test.
It's a little better. I mean, we can hear your words, but there's some feedback.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there. Is your headphone still working?
I'm not using headphones.
That might be
I can
part of
hear
the problem. I don't know.
Yeah,
the thing I was going to say, if y'all can hear me, is what so many of these conservatives are doing, they're like literally cutting off their left arm just to stick it to the libs. Like, yeah, tariffs are going to make me have to pay more for everything. Yeah, some of my freedom of speech might get censored, but fuck those liberals, and those are the ones who are getting harmed too by it. You're also getting harmed by this, and they don't realize it.
Yep. Shooting yourself in the foot to own the libs is definitely, I mean, kind of the Republican mantra at this point. I wanted to bring it back to them being their worst selves and this just giving them permission for that. And I notice, again, I see a lot of similarities between the way that you write and selective insensitivity is a term I heard recently that I really enjoy, because I always have just said, bullying bullies is kind of what I'm about. I will find where a bully's at, and I will meet them at that level. And it, especially on the left, we were talking about this, the decorum and the need to, be PC and do everything the proper way, and how much pushback you've gotten from that, because I get this a lot, is where if you meet a bully where they are bullying, they're usually projecting something that they are themselves insecure about, or that's the only language that they understand, is being criticized in a way that they are criticizing other people. And so I think that there's a lot of value in, telling somebody that they are the dumbest motherfucker you've ever had the displeasure of interacting with on the face of the planet, and you are genuinely stupider for knowing that their existence exists. And a lot of times that comes in, if somebody is body shaming other people and you meet that back with body shaming them, or I recently had a lot of, or I saw a video of a group of conservative LGBTQ creators defending MAGA, and I made a response to that. And again, it's hitting at the point of, you are, you're the Jew voting for the Nazi at this point. You are the axe voting for the trees, slugs for salt. And some of the ways that you do that is Kara Cunningham, who was formerly Chris Crocker, the Leave Britney Alone person, is very MAGA now. And I made the point that I was specifically misgendering her as Chris again because of that's what they're voting for, right? That they have voted to make this a national policy, and not that is an acceptable thing to do, but this is a privilege that you have benefited from, that you are now taking away from the community, and you're harming the community. And enough people have gotten upset about that, as that's never acceptable. And I'm kind of wondering, like, where you draw the line on meeting the bullies where they're at to make them understand what they're doing to the people at large, because a lot of these people only understand it, again, when the leopards eat your face, when it happens to them. And a lot of these token people, or the people where they're going to be the last of the line that it happens, so everybody else is going to be in the gulag or have their rights stripped from them beforehand. And that was very meandering shit show, as you put it in your article at one point. But I hope the point came across that I was trying to make.
No, it's so the basically my guiding star is always punch up, never punch down, right? Like, it's because when you punch down, you become the bully. So, when it comes to something like deliberately misgendering someone, like, I'm going to avoid that, because even if I have the best of intentions, that can very easily be taken as, oh, you're punching down, right? Because especially our trans community, like, they are the front line of the ones getting oppressed right now. So I think that's something where, I mean, I'm an internet troll at heart. Like, that's I know that's who I am. Like, that's what I enjoy doing. So I got to be really careful that I pick my targets correctly, right? And there are ways to, to still make that point heard without harming a vulnerable community. And so the other thing, though, that I think that is important to realize is that none of us are perfect, right? Like, I've made mistakes before. I'm sure I'll make mistakes again in the future. The only thing you can do is try to learn from those mistakes and make yourself a better person. And, like, I'll freely admit it. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Like, I used homophobic language. I used ableist language. Like, that was something that was okay, like, in the society and at the time. But then as I grew older, I realized, hey, wait a minute. Like, I don't want to be that person. Like, I'm not getting anything out of using this language. I'm going to make a conscious decision not to do that anymore. And again, like, I think that's something that everyone has to deal with, right? Like, is that because the world is constantly changing. Like, we're constantly learning new things about each other, new ways to interact with each other. And the best you can do is just, accept when, okay, even if you felt like you were punching up, if enough people felt like it was punching down, it's like, okay, well, I fucked up. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'll do my very best to learn from this and not have it happen again. And so I think in this specific case, there's something to be said about, like, it's the same thing with Caitlyn Jenner, right? Like, you have gone up the ladder and then you pulled up the ladder after you. Like, you can definitely still emphasize that and highlight that, but it dead naming someone is one of those things where it's like, for trans people, it can feel very like, okay, now I thought you were on my side, but I don't know if that's the case anymore, right? So yeah. Like that's
absolutely. And oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, that's it. And again, that's one of the risks about speaking out, right? And about like, you know, essentially meeting a bully on their level is that, like, you can't afford to make mistakes. because then you become the bully. So like I do think there is a space for invective. I think there's a space for fighting. I think there's a space to be righteously angry. But we have the thing that I always think about is the French Revolution also led to Robespierre, right? So like if you start going down Robespierre's path, like, you got to hold up. Like, hey, wait a minute. Like the goal was to make things better, but are we really doing that? So, and again, that's going to be different for every person. That's going to be different for every way that they engage with other people. And all we can ask is just, you know, to try to be better every day.
No, absolutely. And I agree. And the funny thing is that I had multiple trans people in the comments of that, say that they appreciated the sentiment of where it was coming from and how it was used. That's actually where the, selective insensitivity came from.
Right.
Like, I appreciate your use of selective insensitivity, and I was like, never thought about it that way, and I enjoyed it. That was, and it was non-trans people who all seemed to have, you know, an opinion about it. And that was just one specific example that happened recently, which is why I used that. But I think, to expand on that was the repercussions, always the gatekeeping of what language and how we're supposed to approach these things. And the left will spend all of its time infighting on. We saw it with Gaza, for example, during the election.
For sure.
If you vote for Kamala, you're supporting genocide, and if you don't vote for Kamala, you know, you're trampling on gay rights and all of these types of things. And so, like, how much do you think? Because I think that this tears apart leftist cause, because we spend so much time fighting over the proper way, the PC way to deliver a message and say something and fight a cause, that, like, who needs enemies when you've got friends like us?
Yeah,
you know?
it's like,
and what's your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of it is tribalism, right? Where it's like you're very invested in a particular idea, either because it affects you personally, it's something you've witnessed personally, or, you know, for whatever reason, like this is the thing that gets you riled up. And unfortunately, what we have to understand is people are flawed. Like, we're never going to have a perfect candidate. Like, there's never going to be the Jesus candidate that appeals to everyone and does everything right, because that doesn't happen in human nature. Like, we're always going to disagree on things. What we have to be able to have the conversation on, though, is like, okay, what is our bare minimum of you know, what makes us a party, right? And for me personally is, do you support genocide? If you support genocide, I can't deal with you. Like, we can't argue over someone's right to exist. And so that's one where I think, particularly as it relates to this last election, yeah, I think Biden and Kamala had a lot of burden to bear for what happened in Gaza and what's continuing to happen in Gaza. I also think that of the candidates presented, they were at least susceptible to changing their minds, right? Like, I think if enough pressure had been brought on them, they might have gone, okay, yes, this is wrong. This is something the U.S. should not be supporting, and we are going to move away from it. We are going to try to fix the problem that we have made. Trump, on the other hand, he doesn't give a shit. Like, he is openly
Gaza Resort and Casino.
Yeah, Gaza Resort and Casino. He wants to ethnically cleanse the area so he can build a casino, and it's like, that is fucked up on so many levels. And so when it gets back to, you know, kind of the Democratic Party as a whole, we have to be willing to extend each other the grace of understanding that sometimes we may not completely agree on something, but we do have as our baseline, we want the world to be a better place for all of us. Like, that is the underlying goal of a democratic movement, is that everyone contributes, everyone, you know, is protected under the law. And I mean, for me personally, I'm a peaceful anarchist. Like, I don't want any government. Like, I just want people to be good. like in an ideal world, you don't need a government because everyone just does the right thing. However, as a student of human nature, I understand I will never live in that world. So we got to do the best with what we have. And sometimes, yeah, that does mean supporting a candidate who you may not personally agree with. The question is, do you think that candidate will listen to you? And if that candidate has a chance of listening to you, well, then now you talk to them. Now you make them aware that this is an issue. They do need to shift on this issue, and that we need to come together to get them to shift on this issue. So yeah, I don't agree with kind of like the purity politics aspect of either side. I mean, obviously like you can see it on both sides, but that isn't discounting that people do have legitimate complaints. Like people absolutely do have legitimate complaints, and I think they're valid and they should be talked about and we should be addressing them, because again, a stable society is one where everyone is free to live their life. Like no one is being oppressed. If anyone's being oppressed, whether it's an in-group or an out-group, there's cracks in your foundation and eventually that society is going to fall, because that's what always happens in history.
100%. And I think on that Gaza conversation, and obviously no person who was going to realistically win the presidency, because Jill Stein was never going to be president, and that would have been horrible if she was. The policy on Gaza was never going to be great, and I think we understood that. But the point was, as you said, will they listen, or could you at least apply pressure? And I think it even goes beyond that now, because this is when was the last time you heard about Gaza? When Trump said that he was going to build a resort and casino there, and then again we just go back to forgetting about it, because we have now so many problems on the home front that we need to be dealing with, that's a back burner issue for almost everybody in our country, which is unfortunate. And and the difference was that, well, it still would have been a problem. We would have had the luxury of being able to make it a problem we can focus on, and now we don't have that luxury anymore. And so now whatever's happening over there is going to happen, and there's nothing we can really do about it, and we've got our own issues to try to make sure, we still have free and fair elections in 2 years and 4 years. That's the whole, that we aren't putting trans people and immigrants in gulags and concentration camps. And
the best we can get is Bernie and AOC trying to block a firearms package to Israel, but it doesn't get discussed. It's not even like a major news topic. It's just like, they're against it,
and not to discount anything that's happening, like, because again, like, let's be perfectly clear, there is a genocide happening in Gaza, and the U.S. is one of the prime facilitators of it.
1,000%.
I want to make people clear that I understand that. When was the last time you heard anyone talking about climate change? Like, as in, this is a problem we need to address. This is a humanity problem. Like, this goes beyond borders. It goes beyond countries. And like, what's happening in Gaza will very easily start happening in other places as resources start becoming scarcer and scarcer. Like that's what climate change does. It makes weather more severe, makes disastrous events more disastrous, and it makes it harder to exist on the planet. And if we don't come together and start working to mitigate that, let alone actively contribute to the problem, like with this whole, we're just going to start up the coal plants again because we want to declare war on Canada. Like, what the fuck? And it's again, this is an existential threat to us as a species. Like, where, wars become far more common when disasters are happening and people are fleeing territories and there's fights over resource scarcity. Like that's what drives wars to begin with.
Right, which is a great example of where people who withheld their vote from the Kamala, the Harris-Walz campaign just completely missed the plot, like the narrative. Like, one side is going to put us in a path to more disruption, and one side's going to try not to, especially if us as citizens do our part in civil discourse and push them to do something that at least is like marginally better. Like, I don't know, like, there's no other solution other than like armed revolution, and that's just not, like, it's a non-starter.
That's not a good solution ever.
Exactly. So like, you
that's
have
the last
to go
case scenario. You break the glass and oh shit, like, we roll the dice and see what happens.
So like that advocation was weird. It didn't make sense to me and to us during the election cycle. Like, people who are saying that, who hopefully or maybe lived in some of those counties and those precincts in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and Michigan, that could have made the difference in the very small percentages where Trump won and ended up getting those electoral votes. Like, they could have made the difference.
So I think another important thing to point out, though, is that Donald Trump is very much a white person problem. Like, white people created Donald Trump. White people put Donald Trump in power. Like, it's our responsibility to clean up our mess. Like, this is a white person problem. White people need to get on board with solving it, because without the evangelical vote, without the white rural vote, like, Donald Trump is not a political figure. Like, he does not exist in any meaningful sense. So, like, we need to get our house in order and understand that, yes, that's who made him what he is. Like, if we want to fix this country, we got to step up and start making things better.
And that's an interesting way to put it too. That just it gave me an occurrence that a lot of the infighting that we have on the left often comes that is also in many ways a white people problem, because we have the privilege to only care about one issue, and it's whatever issue we pick this week. So, you know, a lot of it was just white college kids, and Gaza was the first thing that they had ever heard about that's like, okay, this is truly horrifying, and I want to be engaged, and I want to do something meaningful. And I loved the hell out of that. Like, the original energy they brought to that,
Right.
I was on board for it, you know? I was absolutely against them rounding up the protesters and arresting them and all of that. But that also comes from when it's like, all right, we're getting close to the election, and it's either we've got a person who's not trying to be a Nazi and a literal Nazi, and those are kind of the two options here. And it's like, nope, I'm going to stand on my principles and my convictions, and that is a white person problem that comes from, you know, very much from white privilege, from just privilege in general, of having the ability to, this doesn't affect my life, so I get to pick what I'm going to have conviction about. And that's, yeah, something I think we all need to be aware of.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, we can't hear you anymore, Trevor. I think you're going to have to cut this one out.
You've been kicked from the lobby.
I don't know if Taylor, did you have anything else here?
No, I mean, not really. My as you, Chris, and Jordan, you talk about how, you know, you don't think that you'd be good at being a politician, at actually running the government. I thought of my time in the military, and which wasn't a lot, like barely a veteran, but I think about like this sort of organizational structure of like a very small company element where you have like a lieutenant and then a first sergeant and then like squad leaders and platoon leaders. And I think of the lieutenant and running that company as somebody like you guys who have the ability to influence people around you and sort of kind of create this coalition and a force that has momentum. And then that lieutenant would rely upon their, campaign manager, their, policy managers being the squad leaders and platoon sergeants, and using that sort of group and organization to be effective in government in ways that you feel like you personally may not have all the answers, which is honestly good because nobody does have all the answers personally. So I think acknowledging that weakness is potentially the best route to get the best of both worlds by aligning yourself with a team and a group that can do the things that are actually going to help our people, by getting somebody like you elected and listening to those type of people.
Are you volunteering to be our campaign manager?
Right.
I will do my best. Whatever you guys need, I promise I'll be there.
I'm
sure Trevor will too. Trevor will too, absolutely.
The city council salary looks a lot like the freshman football salary.
Right? Yeah.
Sure, I can afford a team.
It's true. We're not Singapore, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and somebody in the comments earlier had mentioned that they think politicians are paid way too much, and this is actually something that is a common sentiment,
but it's
that
not
I
true.
think is an incorrect. Yeah, it's an incorrect sentiment. Politicians make a lot of money through insider trading and exploiting connections and whatnot. But the fact that political salaries are so low is one of the reasons that you don't have better representation, because people can't afford, a working class person can't afford to, run a campaign because you're not on a political salary at that point, and then they get into a position where, especially if you're on the federal level and you're having to go to Washington and you're having to keep some sort of lodging both where you live in your district and in DC, and you're doing that on, a low six-figure salary as a U.S. House rep, that can be very difficult, and that is what drives people to go find those things that they can exploit, like insider trading, like lobbyists who are willing to cut them sweetheart deals, because they need to eat too. And eventually, once you taste the forbidden fruit, it gets a lot easier to keep eating that apple. And if we paid them better, just on a regular salary, there's a lot less of that temptation for them to go down that road. So I'm always on the opposite of that. I think that we need to be increasing public salaries for at least House reps and down from there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and it's a very simple solution too, right? Is you increase the salaries and then you make it so when you're in public government, you cannot engage in stock trading. Like you can have an investment in a mutual fund, but that's it. You cannot make individual trades because it is too easy for corruption to arise in that
Right,
instance.
which is a bipartisan idea, but it's not bipartisan in implementation, I think, probably.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I think, Chris, we've probably kept you longer than you have potentially anticipated this conversation. Is there anything that you want to leave us with, any idea, thought, or is there anything you want to promote as we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, well, I mean, anyone who's interested in following me, I'm on Blue Sky at Chris Warcraft. Be warned that I post about a wide variety of things, so I hope you like video games. But yeah, I mean, I guess kind of the fundamental thing that I keep coming back to is that just we need to decide, regardless of our political affiliation, what kind of country we are going to be. We are in a struggle for what does America mean. And as I said before, you can't wave an American flag while supporting a guy who wants to put a crown on his head. They can't exist together. So you got to make a decision. Are you for America or are you for something else?
Absolutely. We appreciate the hell out of you taking your time, giving us so much of your time. This is normally just an hour, but you are just a blast to talk to and to listen to. This has been thoroughly enjoyable. And like I said, I came in here not super well versed on who you were because I'm not a huge sports fan, and my introduction to you was definitely through your activism. And this has been just a blast for me. I've appreciated your time immensely, and I'm sure Taylor was fanboying a little bit more than I was right off the start, but I'm definitely fanboying now. I've been super pleased with this conversation. So thank you so much for giving us your time. Obviously, thank you everybody for listening, participating in the conversation. If you want to support the podcast, obviously listening is the best way to do that. We do that because you come and pay attention to us blabber on about meandering shitstorm. I'm going to use that a lot more often. I'm stealing your line there from the Nate Jackson article. But if you want to support us monetarily, we have merchandise at offjoewagon.com, both my personal and for the podcast. We have some subscriptions available on Patreon and YouTube. But otherwise, we just appreciate all of you, and we appreciate that great guests like Chris are willing to come on and give us their time and their thoughts. And we hope to see you next week.
Yeah, unless Trevor, you have potentially the ability and the want to have a final note as well.
We'll see. Am I working?
Nope.
Sorry.
Follow me
was
on
worth a
Instagram.
try.
For you.
Trevor BWG, follow on TikTok. Thanks for coming on, guys.
Yo.
We appreciate your time.